I feel like this episode has become more a Zuko episode.
That's
And I feel like
cool.
that's
That's cool with
fine,
me.
you know? Yeah, yeah, I think, yeah, that's really cool, honestly. Hello, everybody. Welcome once again to another episode of Peace of Mind. I'm Dharma Peace, joined with...
Dharma Scott.
I'm very excited because we are joined here with, hopefully, more of a regular guest, Doyu Hikari. And his name means a friend of the Dharma, Light. So from here on, we'll be referring to him as Light. So, welcome, Light.
Hi.
Welcome, Light.
Thank you.
Yeah.
How are we feeling? You in the show? This episode, you feel ready?
Oh, yes. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, no.
No, yes, maybe. Hey,
Maybe
look
so.
Well, luckily we're talking about something that you know about, right? We're talking about Avatar, the new season. We want to share our views, our perspectives, and maybe a little bit of, you already know Buddhist concepts and stuff, so we're ready to go.
Yeah. Well, I kind of invited you, Light, because you've been a light to me in the past, and I think that you have a lot to add to the topic, and we can definitely riff some ideas and plot lines and character development points on Avatar. You know, we're all resident nerds on this topic.
Yeah.
So
It's a good show.
we're all gonna nerd out on this one. But also, one aspect of you, Light, that I think that everybody should know is that, we're both combat veterans. We share a few parts of our background that are very similar, so I think that we can talk about some of the themes of the show, especially when it comes to like war and oppression. But that's where Dharma Sky comes in, with some of that minority, point of view, but also the spiritual aspect. So I think that we all have something to share here that I think will add to the discussion. So last time we left off, oh thanks. Last time we left off on, we were on like around episode 5, I think, for the Netflix series. And also, by the way, audience, I'm in Sangha. I'm very sorry that we had to cut out the trailer for Paramount. We made like an official statement for that. But yes, the new Avatar Aang, The Last Airbender film is out now, and we're very much looking forward to seeing that. But right now we're just chugging along on this train as far as, working through the Netflix Avatar and the first season. So we're starting from episode 6, Masks. And this one was a major, I feel like a major character development episode. Highlights are Zuko and his journey as the Blue Spirit, rescuing Aang, unwittingly rescuing him in a way, contending Zhao and his ambition. There's a lot of themes here that we can unpack.
Oh, yeah, many.
We had themes such as compassion, pain, being undermined or overlooked, and not, going through expectations. But we see Zuko with the 41st Division. He's being undermined in the beginning of the episode. He goes there and they're listening more to Sao and what he has to say. But they don't really know about the sacrifice, which could be another thing that he made for them. They don't know about. When we look into Zuko's backstory, when he was younger, I think he had this conflict when we're talking about a battle strategy, and he gave in his 2 cents. And he had to suffer the consequences just for speaking up. And we all know that back then Zuko was very compassionate. He was always looking out for other people. So he was punished for that, and he was given the survivors of the 41st Division. And they don't know that. And that's a main issue right here. Like sometimes we sacrifice and people don't see how much we give for them, how much we give ourselves for other people. So
Yeah, no, it's really good. Actually, those specific plot lines I feel like is what part of why I wanted Light to join us today, because like we know what it's like to prepare for like a council or
Yeah.
we would call it a briefing, or whatever, but like war council would be like more for monarchs.
I definitely drew like a lot of parallels with Zuko during those periods in the first season, because like back when we were in the military, well, obviously he has a lot of trauma and then stress because he's leading people. But the fact that like when you have to when you're in the army or the military or something like that, you are forced to care about how people perceive you, because it does have a direct reflection on your well-being, your future, like your life, your day-to-day living. So I could see like a lot of stress when he was like just trying to overcome and try to redeem himself. Like the very nature of the military lifestyle just reinforced all that stress and kind of forced him into thinking that way. So even if he like didn't want to, you kind of have to play that game when you're in it. And then just being like the prince having to do that redemption arc for being shamed just capitalizes on it. So there's a lot. Like Zuko is like definitely one of my, I think he's the best illustration of a redemption arc in literature. That's because I'm very limited in what I've read and watched, but so far I really enjoy his story. I watch the show for him a lot of the time, him and Papa.
Yeah, I think that a lot of fans would get behind you on that one, like like a 41st Division.
Yeah,
Salute to. But
Yeah.
no, and you said a couple things there about redemption, but also about seeking approval from other people. Again, and that I feel like is where I want to sink in, because pun intended, ship sinking. But no, the reason is because in Buddhism we stress a lot about not seeking approval. That it's not. It actually leads to suffering. Like when you care too much about what other people think, and then you want to change the way you behave based on how other people treat you, especially when you're on like the journey, like when you're on the path, the Noble Eightfold path. But if you're on that path but then you want to adjust and you want to sort of like people please and seek people's approval, then that actually can lead to problems for you. So for Zuko, naturally that he's having problems because he has an internal conflict within, and we see that highlighted through the council meeting, where he's like, I have compassion, like he's showing compassion, and then his father teaches him a lesson in yeah, exactly. Compassion is a sign of weakness. So he's teaching him a lesson in cruelty, a lesson in what I call radicalism, basically. I mean, like, we know it's radical, but these days we're hearing it play out again, like mainstream politics. We're hearing it played out in mainstream media, where everybody in this sort of fold thinks that empathy is a hindrance. So it's actually not useful to them, in their opinion. And the truth, it couldn't be further from the truth, right? Like compassion and empathy are what make us human. And there are also aspects of our human being that go the other way, because I'm speaking as an INTJ, somebody that is overly intellectual, overly analytical, and like I can tell you that also, like, so yeah, I prize that as far as being part of being human, and being like, that's what distinguishes us from animals. But also the empathy, but also the compassion, those things are absolutely part of it as well. So we're like the elements, where we need to balance out all these aspects of our being. So the earth, fire, wind, or air, and water, so that all those things need to factor in our humanity. So being too extreme as far as, well, sometimes you need to be tough. Sometimes you need to have compassion, especially if you're like concerned about having a family, concerned about, just, what the Buddha would call a householder. If you were a so-called householder, or if you were actually part of society in that way, then yeah, those aspects of life show up, and that's how you live a balanced life. But if you see that through the series as well, where like Zuko is exhibiting passion and compassion, and like how that puts him at odds with other characters where they're not showing passion or compassion, and he's so confused and self-conflicted that he can't like figure out how to articulate what his problem is.
Yeah, he's definitely very
it's a learning curve for him.
Yeah.
I remember in the animated show, and he's like, "Why is being good so hard?" or something like that. It's because of
Yeah.
his inherent.
Why am I so bad at being good? Like, yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a
it's tough.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough, but connections are built through empathy. That's how we build connections, through empathy, through understanding. Like myself working with the reason I connect more with them, and we have this relationship where I feel comfortable. And when they're upset, I'm able to manage different situations because of the empathy, passion, having the time to just kind of talk to them and see where they're coming from. And like you guys said, sometimes it's hard trying to be good, because sometimes you try to be there for them and passion, but they don't receive it well because they don't understand it. They never received it, different upbringing. So it could be a little conflicted as well. Like how do I navigate through those situations as well?
Yeah, no, and I agree. In fact, I wrote like a note about the episode where, and actually I can't find it, but I remember what I wrote. But I said that that at that end scene where Aang is starting the conversation with compassion and also opening up and just being open to Zuko and being like, if things were different, maybe we could have been friends. I had a friend who was a firebender, and they shared almost like a bond, but Zuko closed himself off, and it's very much just like any other teenager at that time, especially when they're full of ambition. And I was definitely like an edgy, ambitious teenager when I was a teen. So I know exactly what Zuko was expressing. So he's like, get out of here with that, that compassion junk, that crap.
And I got that before too.
Yeah. And I mean, but he's repeating the words that hurt him so badly. Compassion is a sign of weakness. And his weakest point, Zuko is trying to exude strength, but he can't. And it's because he's crippled by all of the turmoil that he's caused himself and others. but ultimately it all comes back to him. He's like incurring the tax of it all, of showing him compassion. It's actually, and you see like in his face the subtle change from that like hurt and like gritting, like he's feeling the pain of his travails, and he's just like, oh, and then and then Aang starts to open up. He starts to loosen up that tension, and he lets out a little. Zuko, despite himself, lets out a little smile, before, but then Aang uses the word compassion and triggers Zuko's trauma. It literally triggers him, where he's like, compassion is a sign of weakness, quoting his father, and it goes back to that memory of when his father gives him the scar.
Yeah, one of the things I really enjoyed about it was it's a good example of how sometimes too stark a contrast is too sharp, and it will lead to a straight aversive reaction. Like, you try to pit like someone that's all light and jolly against like Zuko, who's nothing but inner turmoil. He's gonna be like, no, and he's just gonna, with that favorite Underworld Victor meme with the dissonance. So sometimes you need nuance, and people just won't open up to you. Like, whatever stage they're at on their path, trying to work through their stuff, you may not be their key to open their door. Sometimes you have to guide them very subtly, or even back away and try to let things naturally take them to where they need to go. And that's the trickiest part that I found it, and I drew like a parallel to that, or at least how I perceived it in the show, is like, you can't just walk up and be like, be good, Zuko. It's like, there's no way. He has to, the ways that he started to open up were through like certain types of like suffering and like very nuanced like amalgamation of like things that reminded him of his mother, like certain instances helping the farmers and everything. It had to be very slow. You had to like mix it in when he started to meet like the Fire Nation that had pretty much the thing we didn't do, went AWOL during the war.
Oh yeah, deserters, right? Like they're deserters.
Yeah, the deserters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really liked how it's just a great story, because he's like averse to like all the change at once, and it has to be like gradual, and he still messes up. Like, I don't want to spoil season 2, but I forgot some stuff where I thought he was on. There's like he's like, oh, he's on the straight and narrow. Oh, he fell again, and he has to hop back. I forgot about that little bump in the road.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, like people on the redemption arc are like, I don't like when it's too sudden. Like they're usually fraught with rebound, right? Where you're like, oh, crap, I messed up again. And that's exactly the path in Buddhism, right? You like what the Buddha had said. You can be on the path, and then you will still make mistakes. There's famous sutras and famous lessons about that, especially in Zen, where there's a Zen master who like makes a mistake or shows like what our Roshi has said before, Sky, about like, I'm so deluded. like an ancient Roshi is like yelling out in the temple, I'm so deluded. And but then that's where the enlightenment begins. And it's not always like that wholesale nirvana enlightenment, like as we discussed before, Sky, about Satori. It's not like that whole, like the flower doesn't fully bloom. It's just a little bit, maybe a petal comes out, and you're just like, oh yeah,
right.
I am a flower, or I am a lotus. And
that's how it is, man.
Yeah, but you gotta have that mud, man. Like we just keep coming back to that, like, no mud, no lotus. Yeah. And Zuko has such a rich palette of mud to grow from. That's what makes him such a good.
He is so fertilized.
He's so
like a giant lotus coming out.
Yeah.
He
but go to Home Depot at all. He's got it all.
Well, you said something light about how it's like cultivating. It's like cultivars, because you talked about the farmers and you talked about that, and then we said something about the lotus, but then planting seeds, right? It's not always like you don't just sit there and watch the seed grow and become a bud, and then we just plant the seed and let time and nature take care of that, but we're trying to cultivate as well, but cultivation, it's funny how in the practice, cultivation always is introspective. So that means that it relates to us individually rather than trying to cultivate other people. We always have to talk about in terms of self-cultivation. Like, so metta bhavana, when like the Buddha wrote out like the Metta Sutta, and then the instructions for metta bhavana, which is the practice of meditation, of cultivating loving kindness meditation. It's always instructed in a way that is, we are sitting on our own and we are going through the process. We're not concerned about whether other people are doing it or not. the sutta starts out with, this is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and knows the path of peace. So like the one, meaning like whoever's practicing. So the premise there is that it's an individual's responsibility to cultivate loving kindness. But for us, it's always just seed. We're just plantars. We're just planting the seed. tilling the field and planting the seed. Hopefully, it grows. It might not, but it's not up to us. Just like karma's not up to us. Like again, like this whole thing about Zuko and well, everything in Avatar. You'll see like events where it's like, man, karma needs to come back to this person, but it's like it's not an ego thing. Like it's not up to us to decide what happens
My
to that person.
biggest problem as a child and young adult was that, trying to shepherd karma is like grabbing a sword in
too,
a furnace, and like
Yeah.
before it's like
No,
with
me
your bare
too. Me
hands.
too.
Yeah.
I think one of my biggest angsty problems as an edgelord and as a teenager was when I realized the injustice of World War II and like what happened to Japan to be like the example for the rest of the world, but what an atomic bomb could do to people, and like how that twisted my logic as far as well, like that was an injustice, and that whoever does that and then says and then brags about it and then makes jokes about it or whatever, that those people are scum. That was like the kind of weird um, logic there. But then as I grew older and as I gained more wisdom, it was more like the wisdom of interbeing started to come around. And that was like, especially like Thich Nhat Hanh, as he spoke about how, yeah, oppressors are often oppressed themselves. And being in the military helped me understand that. Like, you don't get to, like, you're the one going around with a weapon and shoving in people's faces. But at the same time, you also can't, like, stop doing that either. Like, without threat of something happening to you personally, and it's more immediate too. And I feel like Zuko is constantly bearing that weight. He's a prince in exile. He's commanding a ship and a crew of people, but they don't really respect him as a commander nor a prince. But at the same time, they're just kind of like stuck with each other. Um, and it's like, well, they're behind enemy lines. There's a lot going on there that I feel like a casual audience is not gonna really take it. They're not gonna observe, in a way. But then there's the curse of. I'm saying curse. I'm saying it's a curse. The curse of the concept of honor, Sky. Where like you might be like, well, why would that be a curse? Because like honor itself.
That's what I'm asking myself. Yeah.
Yeah. The word honor seems so noble and so unassuming, but actually, like the pursuit of honor, as it was understood in those times, is a tremendous curse. It's a tremendous burden to bear. Because especially in those times, right? Especially in the times that Avatar is sort of echoing, like in our history, like as far as like the Edo period in Japan or in Chinese imperial dynasties, honor had a lot of baggage and oppressive trappings, I suppose, and features.
I would say the pros
So
and
because
cons
of the
list
expectations, right?
one-sided.
Yeah. No, I was trying to say because of the expectations and the pressure show up as whatever they need to be. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and the idea of honor, especially for like young people, like these ideals, ideologies, young people can only see the superficial side of it, where banners, flags, authority figures, hierarchies, that's all young people see. They don't understand like the more subtler, like puppetry there is, the strings. They don't see the strings. They just see the moving parts, but the strings and where they're attached to. And so one of the strings could be like in Japan, Shishigaku, which means like Neo-Confucianism, which is an ideology during the Edo period via the Tokugawa Bakufu or shogunate. They always put emphasis on hierarchy, loyalty, filial piety. So that family, father, I need to honor my father. I need to prove to my father that I'm worthy. And social order, like basically, there's an order to all of this. Like what is the popular slang about that now? There are levels to this. like the private can never cohabit the room with the officers. Like this is officer camp. You guys are over there. Like get out of here. Why are you in the briefing room? Why are you here while we're having war games? So I've literally been in that situation. As a private in the army, and then like I wander into like the war game room. And like I didn't wander. I was doing something, and then I just suddenly felt like I'm 6 feet tall. I shrunk down to 4 feet. And I was just like, oh no, this is not, like I'm out of my status, out of my element, and all of that is so. What that does is creates that illusion of separation, of like us and them, or the big people and the small people. Like literally, like the idea that there's the war game it in and of itself tells you all you need to know. That, and that's again in the council, right? Fire Lord's council, and how they're pushing around the little pieces, and Zuko's in there like, you know, not
I have
can't, yeah,
I got a real world story like the last year I was in with that. You remember I told you I was like the medical officer, but I was still enlisted, and they wouldn't
yeah,
like they just stopped sending lieutenants to do it. So I was trying to go into this tent for a briefing, and a sergeant major was like, "Get out," because they just looked at my rank, and then I waited outside. I'm like, "Well, they're gonna call me in a few." And like after a few minutes, the sergeant major was like, "Oh, I didn't know you were the medical." I was like, "Yeah, I tried to tell you," because he got yelled at by the officers because he kicked me out. But it was a fun time. But,
yeah.
yeah, in the briefing room. That was after that was my last year.
So, and everybody knows they're very aware of the fact that that it's ego. They're like, they have an ego, and they're like, yeah, it's my ego, deal with it. But the ego itself is really the issue, right? It's the front and center of the whole problem.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they're humans. Like we know also, they're people just like us. So it's kind of like this weird paradox where, again, Zuko is the prince of the Fire Nation, and he is pulling the weight of that around wherever he goes. And it's kind of this weird reversal of, because he's a prince in exile, and it's like he feels like he should have this dignity, but he really has none because he's in exile. When people see his scar, they pity him. He doesn't want to see that either. And just a little bit of like insight from living in Asia, having lived in China and Japan, but specifically Japan more, because Japan more hangs on to the traditional aspects of the culture, and that is that people cannot stand to be pitied. They're not, it's not like the same as like in the West where people show compassion openly and hand on the shoulder. Here it feels more like you're pitying them as opposed to just being in solidarity. So there's a cultural difference there, and I feel like they do a good job in a show of kind of displaying that. But Sky, if I can ask this, being a Puerto Rican, and like, do you have any sort of cultural insights like that? Like, because obviously, like, not everybody is like this Western U.S. culture, so there's definitely a diversity there. As far
We're
as
just overly loud about everything.
Just like Zuko, where he is an outcast, he's still trying to figure out he walks around, people have labels, like who he is or should be, or me as a Puerto Rican, same situation. Especially as a New Yorker being from New York, when I'm here, I'm not, American enough. When I'm Puerto Rican, I'm Puerto Rican enough. People hear me speak. They look at me how I look, and they just make decisions about me, who I should be. They try to put me like in a little bubble, and without even getting to know me, they just look at me and have labels and expectations and things they assume about me just because being a minority.
yeah.
So I definitely identify with Zuko.
Yeah, and it's that's why I asked, because it, like, you've shared that part of your history before, and I think that it's almost like that condition seems to also give a lot of insight, because like I know that you're very insightful, and it allows you to sort of empathize, but also just have that compassion for other people in maybe both cultures, or maybe across the map there.
Yeah, and just being misunderstood most of my life, just people just having expectations. I could identify with Zuko, and it helps me connect. Like I said earlier, you connect through empathy. Like, I understand what I've been through, so when I see somebody who might be a little different, or maybe they're not the usual person, and they might look a certain way, I don't judge them. I try to open up to them and get to know them. And I learned that just from my experience. Just like Zuko, he grew. I don't want to spoil nothing from the future, but as he gets to know people, you'll see his compassion, because it never left, really. He always was compassionate. He was kind of like, is that inner peace, that inner wisdom that he had underneath all that pain, because even though you always sees the anger and the wrath, deep inside, he's still a lovable person. He's a good person. Yes. And a lot of people keep watering that lotus that's in there, while the mud comes out, and eventually he becomes a great person. And that's what I did with my life, and that's what I learned as a minority, that you can't judge, even though people may have all these labels about you. You gotta believe in yourself and, cut through the mud.
Yeah. And on that note, also, there's a lot of parallels, right, in like Avatar, between the nations and oppressive factors there, especially. So it kind of has that parallel of relation with minorities and also just ethnicities across the board, I feel, and I feel like that's why it resonates a lot, because it starts with like that Tibetan diaspora, like we discussed before, but I think that other minorities of any sort of background can relate to that, and because that's what oppression is, that's how it manifests in general. So it's kind of like an aspect of just being in the human experience, I think.
Absolutely, and a lot of minorities have had to leave their lands from because of oppression,
Yeah.
because of the lack of understanding and not that skillful manner where they had to go and be outcast themselves. So absolutely.
Right. And so, but then I kind of wanted to go back to this idea of honor, because I know, like, for example, in the Spanish-speaking world or Latin world, honor features, it kind of is its roots in the Catholic Church, and it has its roots in like the machismo sort of aspect as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I wanted to sort of note that for the West, honor, especially in Latin America, manifests that way, where it's almost like, I don't want to be too superficial, but yeah, like Conquistador is like a good example of how that sort of manifested over, well, especially south of our border. But like, we can see that through looking at that long durée of history, why honor itself is kind of like a curse, because it does lead to this extreme, almost it is radical. I would say it's radical view of how to see people as being subjected to the king, subject to the church, subject to
parents, your family.
Yeah, castizo. That's another
tradition
one.
in itself.
Yeah. But like, so Puerto Rico, is it like Mexico, where there would be like the castizo, and then it would be like the mulatto, and the mestizo?
Yeah, you got mulatto, mestizo.
Yeah.
I would say most of, if not all, yeah. We're a mix up between Spanish, African, and Indian, mostly European. And you see a lot of that machismo culture, especially with myself. When I grew up, like, you can't cry, you can't talk about your feelings. Like, this that I'm doing right now, you can't be able to open up, talk about your ideas, because if it's anything different than the norm, you just look outcast. You're being weird. So everybody dress similar, everybody speaks similar, and if you do anything outside of that, you consider weird, or less of a man, or just not Puerto Rican enough or Latino enough. Like, you, especially me being Buddhist. When I became Buddhist, everyone's like, no. It's a big Catholic place, Puerto Rico. So when you say that, they were thinking already, the devil and all of the wrong ideas, like witchcraft and all the wrong ideas. It's just lack of knowledge. But that's where it comes from. Where everybody puts yourself in that. You mentioned honor. I would say more like acceptance, like being like in a hierarchy of acceptance, or being cool or accepted by society, and nobody wants to be the outcast. So everybody sort of kind of follows suit because they don't want to be the outcast. But obviously, you and I, Light, everybody who's becoming better spiritually, understand that we gotta look within ourselves. We gotta be who we are, and not fall into that hierarchy, into those expectations for honor or tradition or whatever label we want to put to it.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And you see, that's why this show, this franchise, like I'd say, like the anime and the live action show, that's why they're so poignant now, and they're so relevant to the milieu now, and what we're discussing in this modern time, because it just keeps proving relevant. It just keeps proving like a point that we can't get wrapped up in these ideologies or in this radical view of the world, or dehumanizing each other, or lashing out, misplacing your rage, or misplacing your emotions and your passion. These things have consequences, and they're often, and interestingly enough, the ideology has consequences, and then vice versa. People have consequences upon the ideology, and that's exactly what Avatar is showing us. It's like complete case by case study on each of these thought experiments, and that's why, like, DiMartino, Konietzko are just, I think they're brilliant, maybe genius people, the creators of the franchise, and I think it's also because they have this. I've used this terminology before, where it's like two mirrors opposed to each other. It's like there's the Western thought and like the modern history of everything, and then there's like the Eastern philosophy, and how that when they are across from each other, it's like an infinite corridor of insight and introspection. It's like when you look in those mirrors, and they like complete like this tunnel of mirrors, which I call.
Like, you see that in Avatar.
Yeah.
Like, you see it. Like, you see the Fire Nation, you got Katala, Water Nation, you got Earth Nation, different characters coming together, forming that Avatar team from different backgrounds, different ways of viewing the world. But they come together with that empathy, and through that empathy, they create that connection, and that's a beautiful message on this first season of Avatar.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, back to that, like, compassion is a sign of weakness thing. That is such a cornerstone of toxic masculinity, And right now, I think the three of us, if we're demonstrating anything, is that the juxtaposition or like the cure for that positive masculinity is showing and seeing that is absolutely what completes a man. Compassion. It is like what makes a father a father. What makes, like, let's say you want to go to the soldier archetype. That's what makes a soldier too. Like a soldier without compassion is just, they're just doomed. They're doomed to die because they have no self-love and they have no will to protect others. So that makes you not a soldier. That makes you like what? I don't know. Like, I don't know what that makes you. Probably like an asura. An asura would be like a Buddhist concept. An asura would be like a murderous being that is defined by conflict and suffering, and that's all you know. And that's what I kind of call I kind of do like in the military is to the asura realm, honestly.
It's pawns of Mara.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, asuras. Okay, just a little bit on the metaphysics of that in Buddhism.
Yeah.
Mara and the asuras actually exist separately. Mara is actually like a deva, but has been elevated into like a cosmic being. So like Mara is less an individual being and more just a cosmic being.
Oh, we ain't got time for that.
Yeah, basically Mara kind of oversees everyone, like not just the asuras but also the devas
and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So Mara is all like basically omnipotent. Yeah, in that way. You'll see him even in the deva realm, which is kind of scary if you think about it. But also you'll see the Buddha everywhere as well. So that's kind of like the mirror there. Well, the yin and yang there, the non-dualism. But like the one thing I wanted to come back to, and maybe we can kind of like finalize this discussion about Zuko and his case study in this this episode of Masks. We barely talked about like the blue spirit. we barely talked about that. But we have to be like Yan Yu archers and stop scratching the surface and actually like penetrate the surface of that mask. And I got real nerdy with that one, that analogy.
That's so good.
But
I like the blue mask a lot. You see it more in season 2, but to me, it was his outlet to express the parts of himself that wanted to help and everything. So, like how I said, like sometimes if you're met with too strong of a contrast, you'll have that averse reaction and be like, no. Like Aang's all light and jolly, and Zuko's like, no, I must capture you and get better. But when he wanted to do something, like I know it started with him trying to like break Aang out, but later on, he's like actually helping people with it, and it's a major element of him overcoming all of that hatred and everything. So it was kind of like the first small path to get out of his own suffering. That's how I saw it anyway.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to mention though that like what comes to mind to me about the blue spirit, first of all, it comes from like what it has become in the Netflix series. I like a lot because it went from like just this masked Avenger thing that had no real backstory in the anime, and then in the Netflix series it became like, oh, it was an actual character in like a shadow puppet theater, and actually he's more like a Batman, and he like is a champion of justice. And he has, and it's kind of like this thing that a seed again that's planted in Zuko and was shared with his mother. It has a connection to his mother too, and like I almost get emotional when I think about this. But like I remember being a little child and watching Batman and dressing up like Batman with my mother, and it literally has exact parallel with me and my childhood. And so I don't know if they also like the creators had the same experience or something, but like. It touched a heartstring there where it was like, wow, Zuko had this Batman character in his life, and it brought out the sense of justice that he had latent within him, but couldn't articulate, couldn't actually let out because the people around him were toxic and destructive. And and the moment that he uttered a word in that vein, then he would immediately get mocked or suppressed, and that, I feel like a lot of people in the world have that same experience, and that is exactly what Peace of Mind is trying to what we're trying to do is sort of tease that out of people and be like, no, you don't have to hide that. And the irony of the mask itself is just kind of like it's really showing Zuko's true self, but he's like has to wear a mask to do it, So at first it starts
I think
out.
it represents what we all do throughout our lives before we accept ourselves. I think growing up we wear masks.
Yeah.
Just like Zuko's strong choice in itself, which is a compassionate, good person, but he didn't want to show that. He wanted to seem like tough. But when you accept that, like you said, we kind of remove for like that mask, and become a true self without having to come to that. So I think
Indeed.
that match represents that perception we want to show to the outside when we just want to, how do I say this, kind of like show the world who we truly are, but we're afraid for them to truly see us as we are. And once we accept that, we can take the mask off.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people can relate there, especially introverted people, and also but also like introverted artists who have something to contribute, but don't necessarily want to be in the limelight. Recently, I've been thinking about Maynard James Keenan for some reason. I don't know why. Like how he wants to hide in the shadow. Yeah. Like he wants to hide in the shadow, but his voice is a tremendous cultural phenomenon in our time. Also, another voice of reason, but he wants to be in the shadows and wants to like wear different get-ups and costumes to sort of hide who he really is. A voice of reason and critique, but also Blue Spirit to me it reminds me of Japanese lore where because of there's like the Chinese historical elements of the shadow puppetry. Japan also kind of adopted that as well, but also there's also like the yokai lore of like this fox spirit, and the foxfire is blue, right? So like it shines in the dark, right? So Blue Spirit kind of like has that sort of element of like it's shining in the dark and it's trickery, but it's also like an element of hope for people. So yeah, there's a lot of cultural trappings there and little like almost like subliminal messaging in a way. But I feel like Light just kind of like has a parallel with you as well in your name. Before we I wanted to touch on the fact that Zuko's sense of honor again is rooted somewhat in like Confucianism and in the Neo-Confucianism of Edo Japan. The general term for honor in Japanese is meiyo, right? And I remember at one point that meiyo to me, I was like, it's when we think about it as far as like public esteem and prestige, that's where in Buddhism that becomes an issue, because it becomes a fixed view, as what the Buddha would say. And so it becomes like a thing where it's like I need to be this thing, this image that I'm painting for myself. But you don't have the brush, you don't have the paint, you don't have the canvas. That is not given to you. All of that is just pure circumstance. And people that think that they achieve fame and they achieve accolades just of their own sort of will are up against a serious delusion, and it's rooted in the ego. But it's also not seeing the fact that you need to have the brush, the paint, the canvas. But again, those things are not like, we're not creating those things. You have to buy those, or you have to be given those things. And it's totally environmental. So, it's totally like ecology, 100%. So everybody that has like, because again, how many of us, raise of hands, have met somebody with a talent and it like totally like incontrovertible talent, like undeniable, but they get no recognition? We all know somebody like that, right? Where they have no money, no fame, no nothing, but it's just a stroke of luck and circumstance that they are recognized, right? So it like this idea that the ego likes to trick us with, that like honor is somehow entitlement to us, is somehow like a thing that we are born with, and it's like a gift of ours. It is a complete delusion, and it is also what is kind of like poisoning our society now. It's it's trying to be as non-dualistic as I can about it, because I don't want to be like pointing fingers or anything. It's not about like any individuals. It's like, again, karma. It just is. It's just like we have no control over that matter. But I also wanted to again double back on honor one more time, because I wrote something that I wanted to share here, because it was something that upon reflecting about Zuko, about all this stuff, not just Zuko, but like honor in general, meiyo in Japanese, and in Buddhism, is that, and I'll read this and I'll let you guys speak, because I feel like I've just been sucking up all the air, like a earth, or like airbender. Sorry. All right, like Zahir or something. Honor is not merely the defense of one's name, family, nation, or tribe. True honor is measured by the breadth of our moral concern and the extent to which our actions contribute to the peace and flourishing of others. It begins with recognition that lasting peace and prosperity cannot be secured for one people at the expense of another. They are sustained only when the conditions that allow all people to live with dignity, security, and opportunity are carefully cultivated. To live honorably, therefore, is to act with wisdom, compassion, justice, and restraint, even when doing so requires discipline or personal sacrifice. The Buddha repeatedly taught that hatred cannot end hatred, and that conflict cannot be overcome through retaliation. As the Dhammapada declares, hatred is never appeased by hatred in this world. By non-hatred alone is hatred appeased. This is the eternal law. Likewise, in the Kakachupama Sutta, the Buddha instructed his disciples to maintain a mind of loving kindness, even under the most extreme provocation, demonstrating that one's character is revealed not by how one treats allies, but by how one responds to adversity. Honor, then, is not found in victory over enemies, but in the cultivation of the wisdom and compassion necessary to transform enemies into fellow human beings. A civilization worthy of enduring is one that measures its strength, not by its capacity to dominate, but by its ability to extend peace, reduce suffering, and create the conditions in which all life can flourish.
That is beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing those beautiful, kind, and wise words, man. I appreciate that. What I took from it is basically not worrying about labels. It doesn't matter where we come from, what labels we got, and instead of focusing on those things, focus on living skillfully, living wise, spreading peace, spreading love. We cannot fight the darkness in the world with more darkness, with more negativity, with more frustration, with more separation, and just kind of show compassion in our everyday life, showing empathy, fighting hatred with peace, basically living the bodhisattva. Not saying I'm enlightened or something to that nature and not doing nothing about it. Instead of saying, okay, I'm gaining this and this guidance, I can guide others and show the light to others. That's what I took from it.
Yeah. But Sky, you do act this out every day, I think, because Sky works with troubled youths in a facility, right? And so you're always embodying this, right? This message. So, like, without any sort of like affectation or any pretense, I can truly say, like, Sky is a man of honor, and I mean that, you know. And Light is also Light. I think that you also embody honor as well, because you.
I don't know. No. I'm very careful about things. Honor to me is a very. I mean, I think it's an effect of. It's something that is a effect of acting in loving kindness. I don't think it's something that should ever be sought or desired or anything. So it very quickly opens the door to caring about how people see you and all that. But I don't know. Maybe there's two honors. The one we're talking about is the good one.
Yeah.
But what actually happens is the tricky one.
Yeah. So, but see, these words that Light just said. That's exactly why he's a man of honor.
Oh, thank you.
Because
take the compliment.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because
I won't let it get to my head though. It's too big already.
No. I mean, and that's right. So once you know with the right intention, you already are on the path, right? That's exactly the Buddhist Dharma. Is like, but also it's just the truth. Whether it's the Buddha or a guru or whoever, it's what the Buddha would call a Pacheka Buddha, someone who didn't teach a Dharma. They just know the Dharma. They just understand the truth. Like, you know, just like light is light, doesn't matter its source, right? It can be a blazing forest, it can be a torch, it can be the sun. You know, light is still light. You know, and so again, I feel like this episode has become more a Zuko episode, and I feel like that's fine. You know, yeah. I think that's really cool, honestly.
Yeah.
And more about, like, in retrospect, more about like positive masculinity, about wisdom through adversity, you know, and how we're separate people, and we still gleaned a lot of wisdom from this beautiful series and franchise.
I identify a lot with him. Like I said, he had a lot of pain. I grew up with a lot of pain just because of just being a quiet kid and not being able to speak up and showing compassion and always living to expectations, what people wanted from me. But I never took the time to see what did I needed from me, what I gotta do. It was later in life where I started finding that Buddha nature within me. So I started kind of opening and bending my way through life and into a more peaceful life. I did have a lot of pain, and I still go through stuff like that. Of course, I just see things differently, and I encourage people to do that.
Yeah.
One thing we can learn about this journey is that no matter what you've been through, no matter how much pain can be in your heart, how many bad memories you may have, you could always turn around. And you could always turn around with connections. You're building empathy, finding your own avatar team, going out there, learning to know yourself, who you are, who you want to be. Forget the expectations, forget what people, It starts today, on the present moment, a new day, and go out there, meet more people, dust that motherfucker you, and become a better load. That's the
Yes.
biggest thing I can say to people.
Iroh said something to Zuko in the anime where it was like, you did this yourself, right? You you finally found your way and you did it all on your own. But yeah, and I'm not ever gonna take away anything from Iroh because Iroh is Iroh, but Iroh was a major part of Zuko's development, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like anyone that's out there listening now who is struggling with doing the right thing, always listen to that person who is trying to show you compassion. It might be hard to. It might be hard to have the patience. Maybe they are goofy. Maybe they are silly, or maybe they're not taking things seriously in the way that you would hope they were. But maybe that sort of spoonful of levity is what they're trying to give you, so that you're not taking yourself too seriously. And that's something that young men struggle with a lot, is taking themselves too seriously, trying to be the next best thing, but then but you're not giving yourself the time to breathe or to learn or to grow in the right way, in the more trust me, my bones and my joints know this. Be patient, do your stretches, learn the forms properly. Just don't just go out there shouting and ready to throw fireballs at everybody.
Not everybody is kung fu fighting.
Everybody's kung fu fighting. But also, Iroh demonstrates true mastery. It's not the wild, blazing, flailing posturing. It's more composed. It's more about timing and finding the right position, and the
Efficiency. Yeah.
efficiency. Yes, and even just saying the right words, finding the right words. So often, I'm around people, or I encounter situations where people get frustrated or impatient because of other people around them. They're just trying to find the right words. They're like, well, just let it out or whatever. And you hear that a lot, in Avatar, where that happens. Where it's especially in Korra, actually, where Tenzin is talking, and then I'm kind of jumping ahead, but Sue is just spit it out, and it's just no, I'm making a conscientious choice to find my words, and don't be afraid to do that either, because that is the combative side of people want that competition. They want that sort of immediate gratification, but there's no wisdom there. There's not. It really doesn't matter. What matters is that we come to the right. It's not just communication; it's also the right way of thinking. What you're thinking totally informs how you act. So Zuko has been constantly pressured to perform and to be on the square, basically. Or what is an expression for this? Being towing the line, right? You got to be there on that line when you need to. Okay, so Buddhism is kind of a conscientious choice not to do that, not to go with the flow, and I mean that. It's in the sutras. We're on the path. It's we're not going along with that samsaric, clock, where it's you got to be here, you got to be there, you got to be there, and it's no, we're not on that time. We're on Dharma time. We're not on samsara time. Sorry.
Hey guys, listen. Even though you heard this, compassion is not weakness. It's the best thing you could do. Learn to show some compassion. Open your hearts. And if you agree with me, please like and subscribe. Compassion. You might just hashtag it. Compassion is not weakness. You know this. It's a great episode. I love it. I love talking about Zuko. Somehow it became the Zuko episode. I guess hashtag Zuko, right? I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Light, thank you so much for being here, being a part of us. Hopefully you can come again for your positive peace of mind.
Oh yeah.
We got probably another Avatar episode. If you guys want to see another one, just
Oh yeah, that's happening for sure. There's so much to unpack. There's so much content in the series, but just being totally transparent with you guys, Sangha, I just really want to talk about this with you guys. That's really it. So, yeah, we can. There's so many parallels to the Dharma and just everyday life. It's always relevant, like I said earlier, always relevant. But Light, I want to. Yeah, you're always welcome to come back with us and be on the show, especially when we unpack these series and. So thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, I love Avatar. I think it's one of the best stories ever written, so it's great. I love talking about it.
All right. Well,
So
thank you so
all.
much. Yeah.
Yep.
All right, guys.
Sangha, you guys enjoyed this video. We're gonna ban ourselves out of here. This is Dharma Sky with common peace and light. Yes.
Peace, guys.
All right.